What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the NASCAR Daily Fantasy Sports Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I am joined once again by the NASCAR guru at the Wise Take Nation, Tommy Shake and Bake, aka Tommy SB. And you can find him on Twitter at KartRacing_22. Tommy, I don't do the NASCAR thing, so you're going to have to hold my hand through this whole thing. But I'm excited to just to have something to fucking talk to you about and bullshit, man. What's going on?
Hey, good. Nah, man. So as most of you know, NASCAR is getting a little crazy right now. We're trying to shove a whole bunch of races into a very short amount of time, trying to catch this schedule up with the 2 months that they took off. So this is Darlington 2. Interesting DFS slate, the way that they kind of did everything with the top 20 starting spots inverted. So, Kevin Harvick won the race on Sunday, starting 20th. You're like thinking lock and load place differential. There's a lot of those guys this week. So, man, it's going to be definitely fun. I'm definitely thinking you're going to have to squeeze more on the blended side, just because there's a lot of people that have a whole lot of good things to say about them. Only thing we're so worried about right now is rain. As most of you guys know, they did push the start time from 7:30 to 6 p.m. Eastern. The weather that I've seen, the weather looks like it's going to be better around the original start time. So, I think they're going to try to jam this thing in. With them trying to get this money for the TV contracts and all that kind of stuff, they're not trying to do 2 races tomorrow because they've already got to redo the Xfinity. They got rained out yesterday. So, I don't think they're trying to shove this in there and then have these guys, even though it's a short, I think like 2.5-hour trip or 3-hour trip from Darlington to Charlotte for the Coke 600. It's a completely different car for the 600. So, these guys are going to want as much time as possible. I know the teams are going to want to get it in. Drivers are going to want to get it in and just get moving to the next spot. So I would hope that we try to shove it in tonight. But if they don't, the rumor that I've heard is that the Xfinity cars will be around noon tomorrow. And then the Cup cars should be about 6, 7 o'clock tomorrow. So, more to come on that. But, we've already got, the cool thing is, too, we've got a whole snippet from Sunday. So, we've got a lot of data we can look at. It makes a lot more people attractive. If you're doing small entries like 20 or less, it should be pretty easy to limit your player pool. There's some people like, Ty Dillon and Ryan Preece starting the front row. You're almost guaranteeing some negative place differential there. I expect some of these drivers that are 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th to get more laps led or fastest laps than them. So, you can limit your player pool by 5, 6, 7 drivers on a 20 entry and then, really just limit your exposures for these other guys. It shouldn't be too bad. But, on FanDuel, it's literally everybody should have practically the same cash lineup. There's so much value, with some mispricing on a couple of guys over there that you can play almost whoever you want. It's going to be tough. The roster construction is going to be the key this week. Getting just weird enough not to tie with 50,000 people, and getting just enough of the chalk that you get the right pieces of the chalk that are there.
It makes sense. This is different for everybody. Different circumstances for the entire world, and the NASCAR is no different, man. We're in a situation where we have a midweek race. We don't never have midweek races, so there's some benefits. And let me ask your opinion as a NASCAR fan. Does a midweek race, like in baseball, all these sports, like athletes are typically creatures of habit, and in NASCAR you can get pretty comfortable, right? It's once a week, you kind of know your drill. Maybe occasionally they do a Saturday race, but for the most part you get in your rhythm. Do you think this can like affect some of these drivers' rhythms and all that kind of thing, and like do you consider any of that stuff going into it since it's different?
Nah, not so much. I mean, we had the 3-day break. They didn't leave the track. These guys have been sitting in their haulers. I mean, they're smart enough not to be like us normal people sitting there and eating a whole pizza and down in 2 liters of Pepsi and expecting to be in good racing shape. They'll still be smart with that stuff. Like I said, it's going to be easy. There's no practice. There's no qualifying. It's just, a lot of these guys probably, being close enough to Charlotte, probably drove home, spent time with the family, and they're just driving back. So I would expect everybody to be at the top of their game. I don't think this midweek stuff's really going to hurt them too much. Just especially, like, if they were to be moving tracks, like, say, for instance, we went from Darlington to Charlotte for Wednesday, I think we'd have a lot more, potential weirdness going on, which you might even have with this race going from Wednesday and then racing again in Charlotte on Sunday. You might be able to get a little bit of that, but again, they're still so close together. It's like practically the same thing for these guys. They're pretty much in the same wheelhouse. Darlington's a little bit more tricky of a track. It's steeper banked, whereas, Charlotte's a 1.5 mile, but, fairly normal in its shape and design. So, If anybody's going to have problems, it would be at this track. But like I said, they've got so much. They've got a 400-mile race under their belt already 4 days ago in comparable conditions. The only difference I see between then and today is that it might be a little cooler, and that rain maybe washing some of the rubber off the track might make it a little slicker. I mean, we did see a good amount of wrecks, mostly single car stuff on Sunday. Recky Stenhouse being Recky Stenhouse couldn't even make it a whole lap before he put it in the wall. That crushed a lot of us because he was starting pretty deep in the field. We thought, again, like Ricky Stenhouse, Kyle Larson were almost always starting far enough back that it made him attractive, but you're always taking a risk with those two douches because one of them's going to hit the wall usually. I don't think it's going to affect them too much. The more thing that I'm worried about is like this inverted starting position and people starting in all these really weird places. And, drivers that shouldn't be up front, people that finished 19th and 20th are now 1 and 2. And then your guys like Jimmy Johnson and Ricky Stenhouse that wrecked out early. You got those guys starting so far in the field that, I expect them to be somewhere in like the 40 to 50% ownership range, especially Recky, just because he's cheap. And then you can start to build your lineups around that. So, yeah, interesting from DFS perspective. But, yeah, I don't think that, racing midweek is going to be too much of a hindrance or change to what we would normally see.
It makes sense. As far as the actual, like before we get into the actual driver by driver breakdown, going into this race, I know you had mentioned it's obviously a lot of chalk because of the starting positions and everything like that. So there's going to be a ton of chalk. What ratio of are you going to go? Because at the end of the day, in NASCAR, sometimes you have to eat the chalk like any other sport. There are some situations, it may be rare, whatever you want to say situationally, but there's some situations where you kind of have to eat the chalk and get different on 1 or 2 plays. And there's some slates where there is going to be a massive tie for first place because that's just the way things fell. But what ratio of I want to eat the chalk to I'm gonna just get a little bit different and hope some shit hits the wall? What's your ratio? Is it more 80% of your team's more optimal and then 20% just kind of throwing shit at the wall, or is it more like a 60-40 split?
Well, I mean, in NASCAR, I don't like to go more than 40 or 50% exposure to any driver, no matter what. So I'd say probably in that 50% range. I mean, if you're building 3 or 4 teams, I could see you, if you like the way everything's panning out, going with, Jimmy Johnson and Ricky Stenhouse on 2 of them together, and then maybe dropping one of them for your third lineup. If I'm doing 20 lineups, they're making, 8 to 10 apiece, a couple together. The more the strategy, I think, for this one is you're going to be looking for one dominator that's starting inside the top 10, somebody like a Keselowski, a Logano, a Blaney, or a Boyer, something like that, somebody that's going to lead, you hope, early. I don't think Ty Dillon or Ryan Preece is going to be able to hold any of these 4 guys back that are starting deeper in the top 5 to top 10. And then you're going to be looking at probably 1 to 3 of your place differential and potential dominator plays. A person like a Harvick or a Truex or a Elliott or Hamlin or something like that that's starting a little bit deeper in the field that you're like, all right, well, this guy shouldn't end up there's no reason why Harvick should be running around in 20th place. I expect Harvick by halfway through this first stage to be somewhere in the top 10, top 5. And I hope to God that he's one of the guys that's going to go out and lead me at least enough laps, coupled with a good enough finishing position to make him optimal. So that's going to be, I think, the meat and potatoes of your really good drivers that are starting a little bit deeper in the field. And then the rest is going to be these place differential guys that are out there. People like Jimmy Johnson, William Byron, Ricky Stenhouse, Chris Buescher. Those guys are absolute chalk place differential plays in their own way, shape, or form, whether it's that they're cheaper and don't need to do as much, or if they're even a little bit more pricey, but they've got a whole ton of places that they're going to make up. Ricky Stenhouse starting 39th, he's starting dead last. Ricky Stenhouse, if he keeps it on the track, should automatically finish at least inside the top 25 or top 20. Same thing with Jimmy Johnson. If he can not run into somebody while he's leading the race and he had a half a lap left to win a stage, and he wrecks into Chris Buescher. Both Johnson and Buescher were 2 of my higher owned place differential guys from Sunday, and it was devastating. I'm like, you guys are idiots for no reason. And then you're going to have to get 1 or 2 of these low owned plays that are going to be in there to make that difference. Because, like I said, you could build easily a cash lineup with somebody like a Ricky Stenhouse and Jimmy Johnson, and then you could plug in like a Harvick and a Truex, and you still got a decent amount of money to play with for your other 2 guys. So it's going to be finding those low-owned pieces that are just going to be the difference maker. That's where the hard part is. And then again, when you're looking at these super, super cheap guys that you're thinking, all right, if we have enough Rex, they're organic place differentials. I'd say like at JJ Yaley and down, you shouldn't have it any more than one of those guys in your lineup at any given time. So, like I said, the lineup structure build, like taking the names and creating your build groups is easy, but it's going to be about getting that right combination because, as we know in NASCAR, there's a ton of variance. And there's a big concrete wall.
That is correct. Real quick, guys, if you haven't liked the video, please make sure you hit that like button as we go through and we start the driver-by-driver breakdowns with Tommy Shake and Bake of the Wise Take Nation. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, don't miss any of the DFS content. I know there's not a lot of sports going on right now, but we're rocking with some KBO content at wisehake.com, some esports content with killing it for sure. League of Legends coming up also. I think next month League of Legends comes back, and I think there's a slate in May, but the big bulk of it comes back in June. And obviously NASCAR, man, we just posted up the projections for DraftKings and FanDuel. Tommy SB goes through and we have numbers, and then Tommy kind of goes through and makes some adjustments based off what he feels needs to be reflected in the projections. The cheat sheets are attached. Everything's free at wisehake.com, so take advantage while it is free. All an article too. Tom also wrote a breakdown so you can get his actual thoughts. But in the meantime, go check us out. Like button, all that shit. We're checking boxes. Like button. It is time to do dirties and drop sevens. I see a lot of you in the YouTube chat got some questions. I'll try to work the questions in, but we're probably going to answer most of the questions at the end of the show so that time we can get through these driver breakdowns and y'all could get out of here in time to go ahead and build some mother-sucking teams. Tom, with that said, start us off with the expensive guys, man. You talked about some dominators. I know a lot of chalk, but break down the expensive, the spend-up guys for us on this race.
So yeah, we'll look at like the 10K range and above. Like every single one of those guys are viable. It's just which one's going to do the most. You look at Kyle Busch starting 26th. You expect probably a top 10, top 15 finish if he doesn't run into any issues. So you're thinking, I'm getting 10 to 15 organic place differential points. Will that outweigh somebody like a Martin Truex who's starting a little further forward and potentially could get out and lead the race a little earlier than somebody like Kyle Busch that's got to come through the field? So, I do like pretty much anybody in the 10K range is going to be somebody you're going to have a piece of. Like I said, most of these guys fall in that range of people starting between the 10th and 25th, 26th spot that is going to probably be the meat and potatoes of your lineup. But, like for instance, if I wanted to take a Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick, because those are probably the two best plays in that price range, that only leaves me $6,600 for four guys. That's what's going to make this week interesting, is it's having the right pieces of value and these mid-tier guys that are going to be good. But anybody in the 10K range is viable. Alex Bowman, finished second, had a chance to win the frickin' race if he would have just been a little bit more aggressive. May have wrecked Kevin Harvick doing it, but still would have been a funner race to watch. Kevin Harvick just absolutely dominated that race. I think 150-something laps led. He turned into what we expected to be a two-dominator race. Pretty much turned into like a 1.5 dominator race. You pretty much had to have Kevin Harvick or you were beat. And then Alex Bowman was the next biggest dominator at I think he had 70 fantasy points. I can't remember. But of these guys, Chase Elliott, again, the car's been fast. He's in a Chevy. The Chevys have looked good. Chase Elliott finished 4th. Same thing with Denny Hamlin, finished 5th. Martin Truex finished 4th. All these guys have shown you that they can finish in the top 5, top 10. So there's no reason why these guys, even though they're starting a little deeper in the field, shouldn't be able to do it. And the fact that you get free place differential coupled with potential dominators out of these guys, that's, like I said, you're going to have probably at least one, if not two, if there's some way you can squeeze it to these guys above 10K to get the optimal lineup.
I like it. I like it a lot. Are there any particular groups you have in mind, maybe any of these spend-ups? I know it's tough enough to kind of get them in because of their prices, but are there any particular guys that you would avoid pairing together, maybe any guys you would? Or is it more like, nah, you only get your slew of one. You're only going to be able to afford one of these assholes anyway?
Like I said, the pricing is going to be the fun part. I mean, you'd want – I wish I could take all 5 of them in the 10K range and just that's my lineup. I mean, there's really nobody. You could couple any of these people together. They're all starting deep enough in the field that they're all viable in their own way, shape, or form. The organic, you really are almost ranking them backwards from where they're starting. I would take Kyle Busch, probably the number one in this price range, as long as he doesn't do what he did on Sunday. Kyle Busch was started 40th, still garnished almost 20% ownership after being sent to the rear and scored from fourth, and still looked like he was going to almost get there. Was not going to get the dominator points he needed to get there, but was able to get the car towards the front. And then I think with like 15 or 20 laps to go, he had a tire go down, pulled into the pits, and fell all the way back to 28th and fought his way back up to 26th. But it ruined his day. You know, we both had a little bit of exposure to him. I love that when you get people to limit your ownership on somebody that's just that good. But again, these guys are all viable. You could stack any of them together if you've got the money. You could pick any of those two, any two of those guys. You definitely can't afford more than two. And even if you do two, that's going to really force you to somebody like a JJ Yaley just to try to save enough, bank to be able to put the other three drivers together. And I don't like being forced into that price range, but you could build a team, with, if I took Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick, and then I went down and grabbed me like a Garrett Smithley at $5,200. That still only leaves me with $7,000 for three other drivers, which means I'm still going to be forced into somewhere in the $6,000 to low $7,000 range for at least one or two of these other drivers in order to create enough money to even get somebody else that I like. So, it's going to be tough. Like I said, roster construction's where it's going to be. You're going to probably be able to get one of these guys and then try to focus on some of these other, mid-range priced guys. And it's going to be like I said, I don't think unless there's craziness, that two of these people will be on the same lineup and win, but you can play any of them in any grouping that you want if you feel like you can make the price tag work.
Sure enough. Let's bank. Wait. Yeah, never mind. Let's go to the mid tier. I'm assuming, obviously, they have it priced that way for a reason. Like you said, it sounds like you'd have to sacrifice a little too much to get two of those studs in there. So I'm hoping there's some depth at this mid tier. I'm sure there is. The problem is, I'm sure that's going to be where everybody's going. I'm sure it'll be pretty optimal to go with a few of these guys because of the starting positions. Get me started on this mid tier, homie.
All right, so I'll just do the 9K. It's only three drivers. So Keselowski and Logano, those guys are your dominators so you're getting this just straight dominators. Like I was saying initially in the DFS strategy, you might want to snag one of these guys that's a little cheaper, that's in the starting place of top 10. Somebody like Joey Logano starting third, right behind Ty Dillon and Ryan Preece. There's no fathomable way in this world that we live in that those guys lead enough laps and hold Logano back to make him not worth somebody that you think is going to lead. I think Joey Logano by the end of the first corner should be one of the guys, either Joey Logano or Ryan Blaney or somebody like that should be leading this race around by the first time we go around, unless somebody gets lucky. So you've got that. And then the cheapest guy in the 9K range is Jimmy Johnson, who is starting 37th. Jimmy Johnson, again, if he keeps it out of the wall, should organically finish in the top 20. So like Jimmy Johnson's like a cash lock. He's a tournament lock. Like whatever you want to play, Jimmy Johnson's somebody you can easily build into a lineup if you're not trying to, like, for instance, you took two guys over 10K. You can't afford a Jimmy Johnson who's like clear cut value. You're expecting at least 15 spots, if not more than that. I would expect Jimmy Johnson to be somewhere in the top 20, barring any natural disasters. Like if he hits the wall, of course he ruins your day, which would happen if he was starting on the pole. Like you'd still want him. And Jimmy Johnson was running well. He was about to win the second stage until he smashed into freaking Chris Buescher for no reason. Like he was trying to lap a dude when he had I think he had like a 4 or 5 second gap over second place. Like that was just dumb. That was straight Jimmy Johnson's fault. Should have stayed back. And then the same thing with William Byron, another guy that was running really well and then got into some late race trouble and ended up in the back of the field. It's these other guys that are in like the 8K range that are the ones that you're getting at a cheaper price. So, like say for instance, I was taking like I wanted to take Kevin Harvick because I'm like, dude, just won the race. Then I could easily slide down here into like this 8K range and say, okay, down here, maybe I want a Ryan Blaney at $8,300 to help me free up some cap, some cap space. I'm looking at these guys in that price range. I mean, you're looking at, where we at 1 second. Just the ownership is just, like I said, it's very, like I said, it's going to be hard to build. It's
going to be hard not to build a team that you feel like everybody else has hundreds of ways, right? Like, but I mean, yeah, you would think that would mean it's a good slate for cash. I think that's what a lot of people would think. The problem with that is the same thing. Like whenever people talk about how oh, I think FanDuel is easier. I see people have more success on FanDuel. It's like it may be easier to make certain decisions on certain sites or take advantage of certain things, but keep in mind that everybody else has those same advantages. So it is still a level playing field. It's the same thing with this. While you may think cash is easier because your team kind of builds itself, that means the edge may be a little harder to find. Everybody has the same kind of edge going into this. So just something to keep in mind. I know, just because I know people are always like, oh, so it sounds like a good cash slate, which it could be. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it's not always just because it's chalky. But, especially in a sport like NASCAR where there's a ton of variance. But with that said, what else you got for us? I mean, it sounds. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think what do you think ownership's going to look like at this level? Is there going to be enough value? Like, is Recchi cheap enough to where they don't have the people will be able to grab one of those guys way up top and still grab one of these guys at least?
Like Jimmy Johnson, I'm expecting to come in like 35 to 40%. I'm expecting Ricky Stenhouse to come probably somewhere around the 30%. And you start looking at the price ranges. So we're in the 9K range. So, it's like I said, the thing that's going to be kind of the difference maker is getting that right guy that's starting far enough forward and is going to finish well enough and get you enough dominator points. Somebody like a Keselowski or a Logano. And then Jimmy Johnson, organic place differential. William Byron, organic place differential. Kurt Busch, another guy that might not garnish the ownership as somebody like a Logano or a Keselowski, starting a little bit deeper in the field. You don't need him to do as much. He's cheaper. The projection model that I've been looking at has him somewhere sub 10%. Dude, I'm like, that's where I'm going to want to try to get a little bit different. I usually do 20 entry max or more. Somebody like Kurt Busch, I would easily take a stand at like 10 to 15% because I just feel like he's a much better driver. He finished, I think, 4th. That's why he's starting 17th or 18th. He finished 3rd. The guy, again, had another shot to win this race. Eric Jones, same basket. Kurt Busch is better because he's got 5 more organic place differential spots, but Eric Jones has a win here. He's starting 13th. So, like I said, all these guys like above 8K, like you could literally take any of those guys and put them together, and I wouldn't hate you for it. Like I said, it's going to be it's once we get under 8K is where it's going to start getting really weird. And that's where I think you're going to have to get different is in this lower price range, because all the expensive guys are plug and play kind of in their own way, shape, or form. Chris Buescher, cheapest, starting 32nd. Had him and, Jimmy Johnson not wrecked each other, he probably would have ended up somewhere in the low, low teens, low 20s, like high teens, low 20s. So you would even expect at $8,000 if Chris Buescher goes out and finishes 20th, he's probably going to help get you there. Same thing with Ricky Stenhouse, probably only needs to get you to like 25th to get you there at $7,900. So, yeah, really 8K and above, man. It's everybody's got a little bit of love for him, and that's it. I mean, it's like it's going to be getting it right is going to be the hard part because a lot of these guys have, a lot of good things to say about him.
Trace, go. Shout out to Tori J in the YouTube chat. Hit that like button, people, is what he said. I didn't say it. He said it, but shout out to him for saying it. Tori, my man. Tom, take us down a little bit further, man. Talk to us about more of these guys. It's like double mid tiers, right? It's like your expensive guys, then you have your like upper mid tier. Now we're getting into the meat of the regular mid tier. But talk to me about some of the guys to focus in on.
So yeah, like this 7K range is going to be like. This is going to be the like low-owned people for the most part, like just 7K in general. Eric Amarola, $7,400. He's starting 9th. Like he finished 11th, 12th. So you would expect he could be able to do that again, starting further forward. Amarola's got a little bit of love. He'd be one of those guys starting inside the top 10 that you're going to have to get a little bit of action on. Same thing with Clint Boyer. Clint Boyer starting on the outside. I'd almost put my money on Clint Boyer. It's going to be Boyer or Logano that I think are going to lead the first part of this race. So who gets there? That's what I'm saying. You don't really want to take more than – I don't think you're going to need more than one guy starting inside the top 10 because it's going to be really hard for these guys inside the top 10 to couple together to score more points than some of these guys with these built-in organic place differential spots. Where are we at? We're at Tyler Reddick starting deep enough in the field that I think he's going to garnish some ownership. Starting 20 was Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick starting 14th. I don't know if I think he's going to be somebody that's, it's $7,700. I don't need a ton of dominator points. Maybe a handful of fastest laps and a top 10 finish will get him there. Same thing with Matt Kenseth. Kenseth hasn't been in a car in 2 years, got out and finished inside the top 10. So like that was promising. Almost nobody played Kenseth yesterday on Sunday, but he was one of those difference makers, and that's really where the 7K range is, because I don't think you're going to have more than one of these guys probably in the 7K range because they're just starting too far forward. So again, it's throwing your builds just way out of whack. It's like I said, it's going to be getting that right piece that starts that far enough forward early and is able to dominate. Somebody like a Clint Boyer, where you could spend down. Ryan Blaney's the more expensive option in that price range. But if I went like a Harvick and a Boyer lineup, I'm still left with like $7,800 to start building the rest of my lineup, which is a little bit easier. You turn around, take that, you take a Ricky Stenhouse at 7,900. Wow, my thing just built the entire lineup for me on accident. Even a Tyler Reddick, if you want to take a stab at him. I mean, if I put Stenhouse, Boyer, and Harvick together, I still got 77.33 for the other three drivers. You slide down, grab one of these cheap guys like a Corey LaJoy if you want to get crazy, starting 31st or something like that, or even a Michael McDowell or Cole Custer, and some of these guys down in the somebody in the 6K range to try to get you somewhere in like the 8K range for the other two. I think you could start to build around that, but it's going to be getting that right piece, that guy starting inside the top 10, that guy starting deep enough in the field for you to be able to build the rest of it around. Like even if I took Jimmy Johnson, that could be it still leaves me with $7,000 for two drivers. So, I don't hate it. But like I said, you're going to have probably one of these pieces just because the value correlated with the price and what you need them to do starting from where they're starting. If Clint Boyer goes out and just finishes fourth at $7,300, he's going to get you close. And if you get any type of dominator points sprinkled in for these guys starting inside the top 10, it's good. MDB, if you're only doing a couple entries, I don't think he needs to make any of them just because he's in decent equipment. Did go out and finish 13th. So, but I expect him at 7K probably to finish outside of the top 10 again, like he did last week, or at least like he did on Sunday. So I don't know if you have to go there in the 7K range, but like Amarola, Boyer, they're in that early dominator group that I like.
No, for sure, man. I feel you. And well, there is a scenario, like the contrarian scenario. This is like the one team. If you're doing 10 teams, one team, right? Where one of these like chalky midser guys, like that's where the accident happens. Because usually it's the back guys that have the highest risk, at least in the beginning of that wreck happening, to kind of wipe them all out. But we've seen those crazy scenarios before. I know this is not Daytona, or this is not like one of those crazy, But that would be the scenario where these guys are in the winning lineup. Otherwise, like you said, you're pretty much taking your best guess at which one is going to end up, holding through here and take advantage of that starting position and is able to maintain it based off of skill and luck and everything else combined. So, optimally, we're probably going to have to take at least one of these guys because there's just not enough value to get us to like another guy above who we prefer.
Correct. Honestly, as far as these guys starting, or like I said, close to the front of the field, I think Boyer price correlated with starting position and where he's starting at. My feeling is that Boyer is going to be the one that leads a good chunk of this first stage. Hopefully, if he does that and then finishes inside the top 10 and leads like 30 or 35 laps, which he should be able to do, I like him a lot. I think Boyer, when I was looking at it, his ownership was at like 15%. Again, another guy that I saw myself taking a stand. I think I went somewhere closer to the 20 to 25% mark with him. Not 25%, like closer to the 20% mark, just because I know I have to get somebody up there, because if one of these guys do lead the beginning of the race, that they're going to be one of the guys that you need to build around, because they're going to get you hopefully enough dominator points with laps led and fastest laps. We saw a lot of the fastest laps come from the guys that were starting a little further forward, just because it's clean air. So yeah, like I said, you're going to have to probably have one of these guys. Probably my favorite in that range would be Boyer, out of those guys in the 7K range. Yep.
Fair enough. Let's take it down below. Nation, hit that like button. Appreciate y'all for tuning in with us, all of you. Tom, take us down, man.
Alrighty, so we're in that 6K range and below. I'll make this real quick. I'm not trying to go anybody really. If I go anybody below JJ Yaley, which is on these mile and a halves is usually our go-to. These guys, JJ Yaley, Smithley, McLeod, Hill, Poole, Hoof, Gase, Galding, these dudes are just driving around. So you could rank these guys pretty much backwards in starting position. Whoever's starting deeper would be how you'd rank them probably. The rest of these front for a while and then had some issues late. Cole Custer, kind of the same thing, starting 22nd. These guys at 6K, I just need them to finish around where they're starting. I don't need much from him. Ryan Newman starting 6th. Congrats, welcome back to NASCAR. That was a great run. You finished 14th. Ryan Newman at 6th. He's going to be, I expect him to be super low owned. I think Newman's coming in like 5%. Where was he at? I saw him earlier. Newman. Give me 1 second. I'll look him up for you. Yeah, Newman at like 12%. Again, he's just starting really far forward. So I don't know. He could be one of these guys. If you really got a feeling that Ryan Newman's going to come out here and show you that almost dying doesn't stop you from racing well, then you could take him as the cheapest option of these guys starting inside the top 10, other than a Ty Dillon or a Ryan Preece, who I'm easily enough just going to fade those two because the negative place differential is there. John Hunter Nemechek ran extremely well, finished top 10 on Sunday. That's why he's starting 12th. I got some love for him. He looked really good. He was really good in Xfinity cars. Daniel Suarez, dude, I was expecting a lot more from him starting so deep yesterday or on Sunday, but he just didn't really get there. I think he finished 25th. I mean, he got you 31 fantasy points at $6,000, so he got you there, but I was expecting a little bit more from them with a car chief. So Suarez at $6,100. I don't think he's going to get you the place differentials built in. I could see him finishing in around that spot. So I don't know if you need to go there this week. Ty Dillon, I love the kid for being my value guy almost all the time because he starts deep enough in the field, but starting second, no thank you. I do like Michael McDowell as far as the cheaper guys in the 5K range. Him and LaJoy, both have a lot of love for them. LaJoy, had some issues, but I can see LaJoy finishing at least a little better than where he's starting. He's in decent equipment. Same thing with McDowell at $5,800. If he can finish in the ballpark of where he's starting, he might hit value. Bubba Wallace, kind of the same thing, but it's going to be a much harder, steeper road for him starting 21st. And then, like I said, these guys from like Yaley down, if you have to have one of these guys, it had better not be more than one, unless you expect this race to get extremely wrecky and, somebody like a BJ McLeod, which that bastard pulled off the track, by the way, on Sunday. He didn't even finish the race. He just pulled off. He was like, I'm done. And that's why he's starting 38th. But if you expect it to get really wrecky and there be, like 10 or 15 cars out of the race, then I could understand why you would go with two of these guys down here because you get some of that free organic place differential. But it's just it's tough down there, man. It's real tough.
I hear you. So I guess with that said, I mean, anything below that is like, is there anybody below that, or are we in like Prayer City at this point?
You're in Prayer City. Anybody under 50, I'd put Ryan Preece. Anybody at $5,400 or less, right. You're just hoping that half the field ends up off the track for wrecks, and these guys are able to make up the 30 or 40 laps down that they're going to probably be by the end of this race. By these guys hopefully wrecking early,
right,
but
right. Or like say you're taking one of the guys that are like basically free. I guess like you said, you get a little bit of luck. Like there's some wrecks that go your way, and it allows you to get, instead of that mid tier that you didn't really like, it allows you to get one more of those stud guys, and they fucking dominate that much.
That's the only way I'm seeing you forcing yourself down.
Right, yeah, exactly. And like, it's like a stars and scrubs deal, right? That's something that we know in the NBA world, stars and scrubs, and the baseball world, we've used it with starting pitching. In NASCAR, that's not something that I see used a lot, but I guess like in theory, that would be what those guys were for in this case. And the only reason I say that is because I think in most races, you're usually able to find some guys in the mid because DraftKings makes the pricing before they know the starting positions, usually. So at the end of the day, you might get luck of the draw, and this guy dropped back, and he's cheap, and so you got a mid-tier guy to rock on. In this particular situation, you don't, because the guys that are starting in the back are all fucking really good racers and the guys you want. So if you're having difficulty picking somewhere in the middle, that's the only time where I can see a scenario where, like, maybe. But other than that, I'm with you, man. Like you have choices.
So,
but you
you got lucky with that. So, like, DraftKings, I don't believe put their pricing out until they had the starting positions, because they already knew the starting positions at the end of the race Sunday.
Right.
Whereas FanDuel, I believe, already had their pricing out. So there's a lot more like super value guys you can dig up on FanDuel. I'm pulling FanDuel up now.
Yeah, okay.
So
yeah,
a lot of you guys, I don't play FanDuel too much.
On most nights, like does DraftKings always release the pricing right before the day of the race?
No. We get pricing usually 2-3 days early, and then qualify.
So that's what I'm saying. So normally you don't need to do that strategy, because there's going to be pricing inefficiencies no matter what, because they don't even know the starting positions. But in this particular case, there's less pricing inefficiencies because they knew what the starting was. So that's the only reason that I think like this is a unique situation where it may not be the dumbest idea in a small field tournament to just hope that like those mid-tier guys all suck ass, and it's really having that one extra stud with combinations. Say you get a 13, or if you could somehow get an 18, 19, 20, something like that from one of those super free guys. But it's worth it because they like those dominator type dudes like doubled what those mid-tier guys did. That's the only way in which it works out. But yeah, again, normally we don't even look there, I know. But because I knew, I was like, well, the pricing is a little bit stricter on DraftKings. However, that's on DraftKings. On FanDuel, you were mentioning FanDuel released their pricing a little early, so there could be some pricing inefficiencies there. Do you see any?
Yeah, Ricky Stenhouse, $6,400. That's a pricing deficiency. He should have been way more expensive than that. I love Christopher Bell at $6,000, starting 24th. Michael McDowell at $5,000, starting 23rd. Grabbing one of these guys, like for instance, if you take Michael McDowell at $5,000, it leaves you with like $11,250 for your other four drivers. Meaning, if you could go up here and grab like a William Byron starting 34th. And you go grab yourself like a Jimmy Johnson at $10K. I got two drivers and I got $13,000 apiece. I could take the top two studs. I could practically take Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch, and I'm short by $200. So that being said, and with place differential and laps led and all that stuff, not meaning squat on FanDuel. Literally, all you want your guy to do is finish in the top 10. Maybe have the place differential pieces right, and then just have a guy that completes all the freaking laps. Like it's a much harder to build because the strategies are completely different. Like I said, you could take that and then it lets you do almost whatever you want. Like if you said, okay, listen, I'm not going to take Kevin Harvick, I'm just going to take Kyle Busch, you could still afford Denny Hamlin. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's you could do whatever you wanted once you take one of those guys that are in like the 5 to 6K range. If you wanted to get a little bit weirder, not maybe a McDowell, you want somebody that's a little safer than McDowell. We get down into that price range on FanDuel. Take a Ricky Stenhouse at $6,400. And I sandwiched him. If Stenhouse, Byron, Johnson, Kyle Busch, still leaves me with 11.6. The only driver I can't take is Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin. You know what I'm saying? I could, and Chase Elliott. I could take a Martin Truex starting 15th. Somebody I think that could potentially dominate the early part of this race. I could take an Alex Bowman starting 19th. I could take take out Kyle Busch and put in put in Kevin Harvick. I still get $800 left, and I took the guy that finished first and second in the race yesterday. The two automatic and the three almost organic place differential guys. Dude, this is easily a cash lineup all day long on FanDuel. I think 1 million people are going to have this same exact lineup because that's what they're going to do. They're going to look at the fact that they can snag somebody for $6,500 in a Ricky Stenhouse, where, if Ricky Stenhouse keeps it out of the, even if he wrecks, I still expect him to pick up a couple of spots. I wouldn't expect him to wreck on the first lap like he did yesterday, but I don't know, man. It's wild. FanDuel. Their pricing was released earlier, like we said, and there's some small pricing deficiencies in there, but nothing crazy. But Ricky Stenhouse at $6,400, dude. That's asking for the world. I can take everybody else I want, can be above 10K, and I'd still be able to build a lineup that I'd be happy with.
Yeah, I mean, you could price guys like. Sure, having the starting lineup helps when you're making pricing for DraftKings, but like you said, it's not that. Even with FanDuel, there's a few, yeah, But there's not a ton because at the end of the day, like it comes down to the starting positions. That's why it is all jacked. This slate is all jacked up because you're taking some of the best racers and putting them in the back. It's like you don't always get that. You know what I mean? Usually there's a couple guys that are back there, a couple guys in the front. You make decisions. They're all in the back today. That's awesome.
Sunday's going to be real fun though because they are actually doing qualifying 4 hours before the race.
Yeah, it's going to be wild.
So we're going to have to try to sandwich the article, the show, the projections, all that stuff right in there. Right after lock, it's gonna be fun.
Well, the good thing is the projections we should be able to basically have down to just as soon as we put in as soon as we put in the starting lineups, it'll just adjust. But yeah, for you, it's gonna be a busy week for Tommy Shake and Bake. Busy weekend, no doubt.
At least for Sunday, hopefully. I believe that they're doing the same thing with this inverted starting for Wednesday, so I have to double check into that. But yeah, man, it's crazy. What kind of questions we got in the YouTube chat?
We got some questions all day. Hit that like button, Nation. We're gonna get into them now. I'm just gonna grab off the one I see. So if you asked one before, ask it again, and I got you. I'm gonna start with DF. That's the name, DF. It says Boyer and Turney's. Maybe he can slide into early Dom points.
Yes, that's exactly what I was saying. He's the guy that you hope leads early, gets you the dominator points you need, and then finishes in like the top 10. The more spots that he falls starting from fourth are going to be subtracting how many, you're going to need more dominator points to make up for that. But Boyer goes out and gets you 20, 30 laps led with some fastest laps and then finishes in the top 10. I think he's going to crush for you. And he'll be one of those guys that's going to be on that lower end of the ownership because they're starting inside the top 10 with so many guys starting outside of the top 10 that are viable. But yeah, I would definitely get some exposure to Boyer in tournaments for sure.
Awesome. Mike Concho says, I know absolutely nothing about NASCAR, but he's playing anyways. Mike, just listen to this. Just listen to this guy here. Go to ysake.com, check out the projection, the cheat sheet, the articles, and listen to Shake and Bake. That's what I'm doing. Corey Brown says, that bitch Carol Baskin. I agree. Charles Britt. Let's hope Stenhouse doesn't wreck on the first lap again.
100% agree with you on that one. Again, very valid points, guys. Very valid.
Points. Jack Carroll says, is the race still starting at 6? As far as we know, right? And now I will say this. DFS meteorologist, who I did interview, is one of the DFS interviews. If you haven't already checked that out, make sure you do. He's a meteorologist, Kevin Roth, and he's doing it full time. He's in the DFS industry full time doing the meteorology stuff. And I did see a note from him. It was earlier in the day. I haven't seen anything updated or recent. But I did see something. He was not so optimistic about this race actually happening tonight because there's flash flood warnings tonight. Tom, I know you've done some extensive research in the area as well, and I think based off what you feel like they're gonna squeeze it on. They already have a plan. Like if it doesn't happen, it'll be tomorrow. But on DraftKings, you're locked regardless at 6, and that's the most important thing. So if you're new to NASCAR. Yes, even if the race gets postponed or delayed to tomorrow, DraftKings ain't releasing that, right? Your lineups are locked at 6 today, right?
Yep.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, from what I've heard, the weather looks like around 6 o'clock when they're supposed to start. I bet you it's probably going to be still raining. I think they're probably going to start closer to the original start time, 7:30. The drying aspect takes about an hour to an hour and a half to completely dry the track out. So as long as there's no more weather, they'll get the jet dryers out there. They'll get the track clear. The only thing that sucks for that is that with all that rain, it's going to wash all the oil into the track. The track's going to be slicker, but on the same accord, the track temperatures are cooler, which once these tires start to get hot on a cold track, it'll be much stickier. So, that might turn the wrecks down a little bit. I don't know. It's weird how it works in NASCAR. My son races go-karts. I get a wet track or a track that's been cold. That thing doesn't stick to the track for the life of me because I'm lucky if I'm getting 130 to 140 degrees temperature in my tires. Whereas you get these NASCAR tires are probably getting closer to the 180 mark to where they're getting to really start breaking down and the oils and the tires start to come out and become, tacky. There's not going to be. I don't think they're not going to have any time to put any type of traction compound or anything, which they haven't done all weekend anyways. So. That's the only thing I'm worried about. Like I said, I think they're still going to try to shove it in tonight, unless it's raining at 7:30 still. If it stops raining before 7 o'clock, 7:30, I think they'll try to jam it in. If it's still raining at 7:30, then I could easily see this race moving until tomorrow. It would be tomorrow late night, but just like you said, your lineups are going to be locked tonight. So if you want to go a little crazy, you could try to build something maybe with some of these really good, like only the really good drivers, maybe starting a little further forward, because it might be harder to move forward, but I don't think it's going to be that much, because if they push it off, it's going to be almost the same conditions tomorrow, minus the rain. It should still be in the same, rough vicinity of temperature and stuff like that. So I don't see the race being on a different day changing the outcome too much, just because, like I said, there's no traction compound or any of that craziness on the track.
All day. Let me see. Garrett Mendenhall says, listen to the guy on the right. Yes, listen to the guy on the right. And he can follow him to success in NASCAR DFS. Charles Pritt says, Harvick is racing in the same car he just won with. That's a good point.
Yes, and I was going to put that out early in the show too. Some of these guys are going to stay in the exact same car, throw a set of sticker tires on it, make sure that everything's exactly the way it was when they left it, and just go. I believe Harvick is going to be in the exact same car. Why would you not? You just won the race with it. Why not? Some of these, especially the cheaper teams, like the super value guys, they don't have another car. Like, that's the car they're in anyways. So I see probably 75% of the field probably staying in the exact same car if they didn't mess it up too bad. Martin Truex had a hole in the front bumper. I could still see them just swapping out a front bumper and putting a new front bumper on there and calling it good. So, yeah, but it all depends on how much Carol Baskins is involved. If she ends up killing a couple drivers before the race, we could have some crazy DFS change. That bitch Carol Baskins.
Tori J. He's the one who told everybody to hit the like button, so we know he's cool. On DraftKings, he wants to know, Tommy Shake and Beg, who is the must play tonight? If there's one guy that you're thinking, like, to me, is it Jimmy Johnson to you? Is it Jimmy?
Yeah.
Jimmy?
He's our cover boy,
the cover
man.
boy.
Jimmy's the guy. Yeah, starting 37, 36, whatever it was. He's deep enough in the field and he's a good enough driver. Hopefully he got his bad luck out of the way in this first race. Like I said, the dude was on his way to scoring a stage win and getting playoff points until he freaking wrecks into Busher, lapping the dude with a 5-second gap between you and second place. You could have lifted and coasted the rest of the track and probably still won the stage. Right. So yeah, I'd say he'd be my lock guy of everybody.
Boom.
They're starting so deep in the field. You're expecting a top 20, and you're getting almost 20 place differential points organically. Like I said, I expect him somewhere close to the 50% range, just because he's cheap enough and deep enough.
Holla for $1. I scrolled up and I did find a couple questions up here that we'll address. Just a couple, and we'll get up out of here. Give everybody some time to build some teams. James Misek said, how do you feel about Cole Cluster as a GPP pivot? Don't expect really any ownership on him, especially for the place differential potential.
Oh, Cole Cluster is going to garner some serious ownership, man. He's cheap. It's $6,600. Starting 22nd. Like I said, you're going to get forced down here. So, if I'm trying to stack in some studs, Cole Custer is one of my top guys in the 6K range that I'd want a piece of. Him and a LaJoy or something like that, or a McDowell, somewhere in this price range. So I got a lot of love. I still think Cole Custer is going to garnish, because of his price and because of the fact that you hope he's going to finish a little better. I could see, you don't need Custer to do much more than finish where he started at $6,600. Let me pull up our handy dandy thing. So if Cole Custer starts 22nd and finishes 22nd, what does that put us at? We are at, on DK, Cole Custer, 22nd, goes out and finishes 22nd. I'm looking at, you're looking at almost a guaranteed 20 fantasy points at $6,600. That's 3x. So you're hoping that he finishes like 15th. Cole Custer goes out and gets you a 15th. He's in the 30s. So I see him garnishing some serious ownership just because he's cheap. So yeah, I got a lot of love for Cole Custer at that price for sure.
This just in 6 minutes ago from our from DFS meteorologist Kevin Roth. And Tom, looks like you were right all along. Roth says, this is 6 minutes ago, so at like 5 o'clock. He said, raining at Darlington Raceway now, but seeing clearing upstream behind the shower. He says, I was probably too quick to put the kibosh on NASCAR race tonight. We'll have to avoid future pop-ups, but it looks a lot better now than I expected it would, so we've got a shot here. There you go. Shake and Bake was on that weather, man. See?
So what's that guy get paid to be the meteor? I could do that.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Fuck, I would never, no offense. Like for NASCAR, I give you a shot in one race, but if I would never trust you to tell me the weather for 10 different baseball games. No, one baseball game I would trust you because I think you would get in there and do the work. But if I gave you 10 games, I need a real meteorologist for that. You know what I mean? But you're right. One event, You,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, if it's NASCAR, Tom will be on it. He will be on it. All right, let's see. Any interest in Reddick possibly getting up front and leading some laps?
Dude, that's a lot for Reddick. Leading some laps. We got Reddick starting 14th. I don't know about him leading a ton. I mean, he's somebody that starting 14th, he's probably still going to garner some ownership because of his price, probably in like that 15% range. So it makes him a little more attractive from an ownership perspective. Do I think he's going to lead a lot of laps? No. But, starting 14th, if pitch strategy works out and he, gets 10 or 15 laps led or 10 or 15 fastest laps and then finishes where he started, again, if we go back to our handy thing there, Reddick starting 14th, and if Reddick just with no other place differential or anything else just finishes 14th, he's getting you 28 fantasy points. So I could see that being something that's all right. At his price tag, you're not asking for a whole lot out of him. So, like I said, you're going to be forced into these ranges, and that's where you're going to get different is with those guys in the high, the 7 to, the 7K to the, 6K range, 7 and 6s total is where you're going to be trying to get a little bit different, where you're going to get the guys that aren't going to be so highly owned, but they're going to be the difference makers on your lineups. Everybody could build a cash lineup and throw it in a GPP. And I guarantee that, there's a chance that you're going to cash, but you're going to cash with 1,000 other people tied for it. Like Daytona last year, I finished second I finished the second highest point total in Daytona, and I finished 173rd. What I'm saying? I was tied with another like 90 people, but first place was tied with 170 people. It was wow. It wasn't Daytona. It was another race, but I've seen that where you can have the second highest point total and still scored in the hundreds, with NASCAR. So you don't need a lot from those guys, especially at Tyler Reddick's price tag to pay off. So that's where I think you can play a little bit different and get a little bit weird.
Question from Charles Pitt: Christopher Bell over Cole Cluster though?
Bell Custer.
Cole Custer, right? No.
Yeah.
Oh, Bella Custer.
Yeah,
Bella
Bell
Custer.
and Custer.
Okay, yeah. Cristobal. Yeah, he's the original.
Bell Custer. Bell Custer.
You sound like fucking Finkel or Einhorn right now. Remember Ace Ventura? Finkel or Einhorn? Yeah.
So what was the question? Would I take Christopher Bell over Cole Custer?
I think he had asked it when you were talking a little bit about you had spoke about Custer and how he's in a good spot, and I think you'd mentioned some Bell a little bit. So I think he's asking like if you had to pick, like, would you put Bell over Custer?
Yeah, I mean $200 and I'm getting two more spots. I think he's in better equipment. So yeah, I'd probably lean Bell over Custer, but it's not we're not talking like 30% and 15%. We're talking like 25 and 20, like is where I think these guys will pan out probably. So, they're both really good plays. Even playing the two of them together, if you wanted to get, crazy, you put the two of those guys in together, that leaves you with $9,200 for your other four drivers. So you could get a little weird with those two.
Two more questions, Tom, and then I'm going to eat some ribs because ribs go really good with NASCAR.
They are.
Kurt Busch or Byron? From Z Carpenter.
Kurt Busch or Byron? Byron's safe as hell. I mean, starting 34th, you're not asking for him to do much to get inside the top 20. Kurt Busch is probably either going to have to somehow get some dominator points or finish in like the top 5 to outscore William Byron. So I definitely like Byron more than Busch, but again, you can play both of them. You can play both of them together. Because I think Kurt Busch is one of those mid-range guys that has some dominator potential, and you're getting him at the, he's still a little bit more pricey compared to some of these other guys starting inside the top 10, or inside the top 20. But both of them are still good plays either way you slice it. But Byron's definitely way safer as long as he keeps it out of the wall again.
Patrick Tyson says, Buescher or Reddick?
Buescher or Reddick? Buescher safer. Reddick, again, is probably going to have to get you something at $7,700 starting 14th to be able to pay off. You're expecting Reddick to go out there and at least get you a top 10. I think to beat what Buescher would get finishing like 20th at a $400 price difference. So, again, Buescher's safer. but not in great equipment. But, you would probably need Buescher to finish around 20th and Reddick to finish like around where he started to, pay off.
Fair enough. Bonus question. This is it, and we're out of here. Garrett Mendenhall. Who wins the race? Who is your who do you think wins the race straight up? Like fantasy aside, who wins?
Fantasy aside,
who wins this bad boy? Who wins
that's
this?
A tough question, man. I don't know. I can see Harvick doing it again.
Yeah, right. It seems too logical that Harvick would win. So I don't think he's going to win only because it makes too much sense. And sports never makes that much sense. Like it never makes that much
What do we
sense.
got? Let me look at what we got on some odds. Maybe I could figure out who we got odds wise, what would be the best play for.
Yeah. Who's got the most value? Like,
let's see.
There.
Who's got the best value to win?
We're in Jersey. We could do that.
Yeah.
Jersey, we could do that, man. I got my dog's teeth everywhere, man. His baby teeth, man.
I like Clint Boyer at plus 4,000. It is a long shot. I'll take that.
Oh, God.
$10 on that, man. Wow. Yeah, I mean, Harvick and Bowman are probably your two safest options to win. Bowman's got a little bit better odds at plus 800. Yeah. Harvick's only plus 400. When I play NASCAR, I'm not about spending $100 to win 400. I'd rather spend 10 to win 400 on a Clint Boyer.
Oh, yeah.
And just swing for the fences on it.
It's so damn risky. Like, why? Like those odds aren't good enough. Like NASCAR is so damn even a favorite and betting on a favorite in NASCAR just seems ridiculous. Like I actually bet it because there's so many things that can go wrong and you're not even making that much from it. But yeah, I mean, I would agree as far as Harvick, like betting aside, fantasy aside, Harvick would make sense, right? It would make sense. Yeah. He's in the same car. He dominates this track. He just fucking won. He's playing the same people pretty much. I mean, yeah, some people are going to change some cars, but yeah, it would make sense if he won. But it just never seems that.
I like the Joey Logano prop bet to win stage 1 plus 750.
There you go.
I think he should win this first stage. Either Logano or Boyer should win this first stage. So I do like that as a prop. And then again, I mean, the Hendricks cars have been fast. If you want to take another prop bet on a Hendrick car winning, that gets you 4 guys. I mean, really only 2 of them probably have a shot. But yeah, I'm not going to throw some money on some Clint Boyer. I'll throw $10 at him and just have something to root for from that aspect at plus 4,000. Hell yeah.
All right, Nation, we're going to get up out of here at this point, man. We got about 45 minutes to lock. Everybody's got to go build their teams, do thy dirty to thy neighbor before thy neighbor does thy dirty to you, as we always say. So go check us out at wisec.com. You can read Tommy SB's breakdown. There's still time to do that. Or the cheat sheets are up for FanDuel and DraftKings. The projections are also up for FanDuel and DraftKings. Appreciate those of you that hang out with us. Please like the video if you haven't already. Like it on your way out. We'll be back at it this weekend. No Clint once again this weekend. He's got a little trip, so it'll probably be either me or Paulie or someone. But Shake and Bake will be here talking about the race on Sunday, no doubt. So with that said, for Tommy Shake and Bake, for myself, the entire Wise Take Nation, as always, good luck.
Yeah.